Hello and welcome to the A-Lift webinar, which is going to explain to you the science behind the results of the innovative nanocurrent technology. I'm Sally Durant, and I'm going to be taking you through the physiological effects of the treatment and the clinical trials and statistical evidence behind this new technology. The A-Lift is actually founded in considerable medical research into Electro-Medicine, which is the use of electrical currents at varying frequencies and modalities to impart cellular regeneration and healing within the tissues. We're going to be looking at a number of clinical trials and the evidence behind this technology to illustrate its amazing results. A-Lift uses two phases of groundbreaking nanocurrent technology, which is able to tune in to the skin's natural biorhythms to impart cellular regeneration at an intricate level. This is able then to impart increased healing and cellular renewal and the development of new proteins within the skin, most specifically collagen, elastin, and the glycoprotein hyaluronic acid. Thus, A-Lift is giving anti-aging from the inside to the outside, and this is really a very great progression in terms of not only treating aging at root source, but also preventing the progression of premature aging. And as we've already mentioned, to be an adjunctive treatment alongside aesthetic clinical treatments such as chemical skin peeling, microneedling, laser, etc., where the skin is being wounded and support in the healing and recovery from those treatments is really depended upon for the success and the satisfaction of the client. So first of all, let me introduce the people behind this treatment. First of all, the treatment is distributed and supported by Nouveau Beauty Group, and this is a company owned by Karen Betts, who has led the industry for micropigmentation treatment for many years, and now has the additional portfolio of skin therapy treatments, which includes A-Lift and also the Dermitude microneedling device and mesotherapy device. This therefore forms a sister company to the Nouveau Beauty, which is Nouveau Skin Therapy, and as we mentioned, A-Lift falls into this distribution chain. Ali Hussain is from Sonic Medical Systems. He is the inventor of the nanocurrent technology. He is an industry expert in the field of aesthetic science and is a digital engineer, physicist, and an electronic engineer. He has specialized for many years in designing beauty equipment such as IPL and laser systems, and his use of nanocurrent in the treatment A-Lift has now is being trialed and being used worldwide. I am Sally Durant, and I run a training consultancy which specializes in advanced clinical procedures and skin health management, principally for the Medi-Spa and aesthetic skincare sectors. In the work that I do, I work with qualification development in line with Health Education England. We provide professional development in skin sciences, cosmetic dermatology, and clinical skin treatments, and in particular specialise in e-learning packages for the postgraduate practitioner, alongside very personalised practical tuition. And so from my point of view today, I want to bring you not only the science, but also to explain the physiology of how the nanocurrent works within the skin and how it's going to benefit your practice in advanced skin treatment. So, the science behind the results. Essentially, to look at how the A-lift works, it's really important to consider how the skin functions, its physiology, and how a healthy skin in particular needs to function to retain its youthful appearance and general overall health. And essentially, if a skin is healthy and balanced in its oil and moisture content, it has good cellular renewal, the different functions of each individual cell are working as they should do, then that skin will give you a great complexion. It will essentially be a happy skin. So we need to first of all look at how that is going to be achieved. It's certainly now looking at skin health management in advanced beauty therapy and Medi-Spa sector. In any treatment program, we need to understand skin functionality, the skin physiology, how the skin cells metabolize, how they repair, and how they renew themselves. Because actually prevention of ongoing damage is a vital key to anybody approaching anti-aging treatment. It's far easier, as the saying goes, prevention is better than cure. And from this point of view, anti-aging treatments really should be started by anybody from their early to mid-20s, which is physiologically when the skin starts to age. Of course, correction of cellular damage and aging is something which underpins the industry, and there are certain advances now that can enable us to do a considerable amount to reverse cellular damage. One of the things that we need to do that in order to achieve a regression of aging is to prevent early apoptosis, which is cell death. Epidermal cells are programmed to die within a cycle, the keratinocyte life cycle, and equally other cells in the skin, particularly the fibroblasts which produce collagen and elastin, if damaged, they will die early, and that means that you will not be producing the collagen and elastin that you wish, or at least it'll be happening a lot slower. So early apoptosis, cell damage, results in degeneration of the skin tissue, and this therefore then results in premature aging. So in terms of the A-lift treatment, the A-lift uses two phases of nanocurrent technology. We're going to be looking at the nanocurrent technology in great detail and explaining how this works. But suffice to say, at this particular time, this stimulates the skin at an intricate cellular level that has otherwise been eluded, really tuning in to our natural frequencies to help to stimulate cellular function. If I may just flick back to that, the treatment also uses three phases of microcurrent, which you may well be already familiar with for non-surgical lifting. So the two phases of nanocurrent and three phases of microcurrent together produce a very rounded effect, and we'll be looking at exactly how that works shortly. So first of all then, to look at the biology of skin aging, again, a necessary factor is to understand what's underneath the skin so that you can correct it. First of all, you have to consider that there are intrinsic and extrinsic elements to the stimulation of aging, the onset of aging. Naturally, we age chronologically, we're programmed to age as we go through, and it will follow a certain pattern, as I've already mentioned, starting from the early 20s. And then it will go through a process of slowing down cell renewal, slowing down collagen and elastin production, loss of hyaluronic acid, etc., etc. But there are so many influences both outside of the body, i.e. extrinsically, and also internally in the body, which will bring the processes forward, will progress aging more quickly. And essentially, this really rests on the production of free radicals, and free radicals within the body are caused by any element of inflammation, whether that be from ultraviolet light or pollution from outside the body. It might be from poor diet, from alcohol, from smoking, or inside the body naturally. If there's any element of inflammation, ill health, or dysfunction, then and stress, even mental issues, these can all trigger free radical damage, which will manifest really predominantly within the skin as a visible sign. So when we look at good skin function, it is key to the vibrant, youthful skin. And part of that then is to be looking at the strains and stresses that could be impeding good cellular function. If we take first of all the cells of the epidermis, of course, these are called keratinocytes. And from the lower area of the basal layer of the epidermis, here we see the stem cells of the epidermis and the cells of the stratum germinativum here, the keratinocytes, which are columnar epithelial tissue, reproducing by mitosis. And as we know, these differentiate or change as they pass through the various layers of the skin until you've got a flattened bilayer structure, sort of skeletal cells, flattened, embedded with keratin, and sandwiched between the lipids of the epidermis to make a sort of brick wall barrier function. If we look at how this occurs, of course, you've got this transition of cellular reproduction through keratinization, and then eventually to desquamation. And in the healthy skin, that should take 28 days. In a young skin, it happens a little bit quicker in infancy and childhood, teenage years. But by the time you're getting to late teens, it should be going through a process of every 28 days, the skin pretty much renews itself. But as we know, as we get older, that process slows down, and it can reach 40 to 60 days in an older skin. But equally, if the skin is unhealthy in any way or under oxidative stress or general ill health, then again, this process will be slowed down. And this gives the skin a duller complexion, but also an inability to heal and regenerate itself, which will impact on many elements of sort of visual complexion, and certainly affect how we can be effective in aesthetic treatments. When you look at the dermis, we have a very different structure here as opposed to the stratified epithelial tissue of the epidermis. Here we have areolar connective tissue made up of a background matrix of collagen, elastin, and hyaluronic acid, which is the water-retaining gel-like substance that forms the background of the dermis. And of course, the collagen giving strength and the elastin giving stretch and bounce to the skin. Basically, it's our tubey sort of surgical stocking of the skin. These proteins and glycoprotein of hyaluronic acid are produced by the fibroblast cells, which are these sort of almond-shaped cells here that you can see. And these are vital to the health of the dermal tissue. And as with any cell, as we've just been saying, as we get older, as there are strains on the body and oxidative stresses, these cells can become damaged and function less effectively. So again, this is something that in our treatments we want to be able to support and maintain the health of these cells. When these cells cease to function correctly, and indeed when stresses and strains, oxidative stresses on the body take effect within the skin, and this can be direct damage by ultraviolet light, or it can be indirect by the side effects of inflammation, i.e. free radicals, and the fibroblasts are not working as well. And what you see here is in a young skin, you've got nice dense collagen and elastin fibers giving good support and elasticity to the skin. But then as this individual gets older, you see the strands of protein becoming more scattered, more sparse. The skin starts to collapse because there's less support there. And then, in older age, we actually get this real dip into the dermal tissue. This is an epidermal line, and this is a deeper wrinkle. And essentially what this will behave like is a form of scar tissue, an indented scar tissue. And if we want to regenerate this, we need to rebuild this tissue. Obviously, prevention again is better than cure, but there are certain things we need to be able to do. If we can increase cellular metabolism and skin and cell health in the epidermal and dermal cells, then we stand a chance of having a better result in terms of regeneration. So supporting these cells is vital. So in summary, the cells we need to be supporting in order to have good skin health is the keratinocytes, which maintain the healthy barrier function, vital to a healthy skin. Fibroblast cells to create strong elastin, collagen, and hyaluronic acid. And then other cells which we haven't mentioned before, but equally are very contributory to the overall health of the skin. The melanocyte cells, which produce melanin, these need to be kept healthy in order to function properly. We need our melanin to protect the skin, absorb the ultraviolet light, but also if melanocytes become unhealthy, they might start to spurt out irregular pigment. Nerve cells, and within that sort of category of nerve cells, I'm also going to link in with the immunology of the skin, Langerhans cells, mast cells, macrophages, and T and B cells. These are all involved in the inflammatory processes and the healing and regenerative processes. And it is the function of these particular cells that we depend upon for the fight against aging. So when there is free radical damage, when there is inflammation within the skin, these cells are going to help to fight against that damage and repair that damage. So again, we need to support the metabolism and strength of this cellular content, this tissue. So when we look at cellular function, naturally we need to talk about what a cell is and what it does. And I'm sure that many of you have seen maybe not a 3D diagram of this, but a diagram of the skin cell or of a cell. All cells have a basic structure, and then with various adaptations according to their specific function. So obviously, I'm just going to talk about the main elements of this skin cell. First of all, the cell membrane surrounding the cell. This is a semi-permeable lipid-based membrane, and it is selective, therefore, in what it allows into the skin, into the cell, and what it doesn't allow into the skin, and also what it allows out of the cell. It does also have an electrical sort of element to it, allowing ions to pass to and from by osmosis and diffusion. So that element we're going to talk a little bit about later. And in the meantime, we'll just now concentrate on, first of all, the nucleus, which contains the DNA material for the reproduction of the cell. If this area remains undamaged, then the cell will continue to hopefully replicate in a normal fashion. If it becomes damaged, then potential mutation of the cells can occur. And amongst the cytoplasm of the cell, which forms the body of the cell, you have various different little organelles, all of which have their specific function. And in order to function, those organelles need energy. So that leads us to come to the mitochondria, which are these little blue areas here, which look a bit like a woodlouse. These are the battery generators, the charges of the cell. They take in, they take in oxygen, and they take in oxygen and glucose, and they convert that to heat and energy. And so from this point of view, they are exactly like a generator, and their health is very, very important. And like any other area of the tissue, these can become damaged by free radicals. Indeed, they create their own free radicals intrinsically within the cell. So the health of the mitochondria and the stimulation of their function is vital if the cell is going to be vibrant and performing its functions correctly. So the mitochondria, therefore, the batteries of the cells, are in all cells, not just in skin cells, and they take in oxygen and food to produce heat and energy. So looking at this, we have glucose from the diet, from carbohydrate, fats and proteins, and of course oxygen from taken in through the lungs. And both of these things together are taken into the mitochondria. And what happens then is that they form heat and energy, but they need a vehicle to carry that heat and energy around the cell. And this is where our other element, ATP, comes into the equation. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate, and it literally is a carrier for the heat and energy, and will carry that heat and energy around the cell. Without ATP, the heat and energy will not get to the parts of the cell it needs to, and the cell will start to suffer. So ATP is a vital component. Thus, if we want to look at aging as an entity in terms of how it reflects on the mitochondria, if we get less natural energy, the cellular energy, our batteries run down. And this is exactly how we want to now look at the aging process in relation to the A-lift. Because what the A-lift is going to do is literally recharge those mitochondria, recharge the mitochondria to produce more ATP so that more heat and energy can be carried around the cell, and that the cell then is able to provide its function. It's able to have the energy to reproduce and regenerate. So recharging the body's cells' batteries is what the A-lift is basically going to be doing. When we look at premature aging, as I've already mentioned, it's very important to look at the cell fatigue in terms of free radicals. And alongside of your treatments with A-lifts, you will be looking to address free radical damage with antioxidants. And the two things together are going to give you a very potent anti-aging process. Just to reiterate about the mitochondrial reactive oxygen species, another reason why you need to be providing this treatment with antioxidant technologies is because mitochondria will produce reactive oxygen species in their function. So in increasing cellular health, we also need to be making sure that the skin is not under oxidative stresses to accumulate damage. So regeneration and reduction of oxidative stress is really what we need to be doing. The oxidative stresses, if they do take hold, actually become part of a process, whereas during the day, as the body is metabolizing, all the body cells are producing free radicals. And so you see from here a healthy vibrant cell over the period of a day will become a less healthy cell. So we need to increase the strength and resilience of the cell to the free radicals, both by stimulating the cell to be more functional and stronger, and also by reducing oxidative stress. So in essence, if we reduce the energy within the cell, because perhaps there's not enough ATP or because there's that oxidative stresses, the cell will inevitably die early, and that will result in skin aging. So preventing that from happening, keeping those cells vibrant, is really important. Just to bring together, therefore, the elements of aging that you need to be aware of when you're addressing a mature skin. Oxidative stress causes strain on the tissue. It actually reduces oxygen. You get slower cell renewal, poor fibroblast function, producing less collagen, elastin, hyaluronic acid, a weakened blood flow. The skin becomes dehydrated and therefore imbalanced, with a poor barrier function. The effect of that is poor healing and regeneration. And collagen, elastin, and hyaluronic acid are all reduced within the skin. The fibroblasts are less active, but equally the extrinsic and intrinsic free radicals are actively breaking down those tissues and destroying them. This results in lines and wrinkles, dropped contours, and a lax, very loose textured skin, which we now know is the aging skin. So, how is the A-lift going to help to reduce this aging process and to correct it from the inside to the outside? And this is, as I've said at the beginning, this is steeped in medical research, researching degenerative diseases whereby tissues are atrophying or are damaged and need to be rebuilt. And this is the very exciting part of many aesthetic treatments that begin with a medical indication and then take on a cosmetic one. So, as we've already said, the clinical evidence behind this technology is very important, and I will be going through that a little bit later. But first of all, let's have a look at what the A-lift is actually all about. Electro-medicine, again, mentioned this at the beginning, it's the culmination of many years, actually over 50 years, scientific research into the electrical stimulation of skin cells and human body cells of all types. The electromedicine being used on various body medical issues. And it's basically stimulating the natural physiology of human cells, the natural functioning of human cells, whether that's secretion of a substance such as proteins, enzymes, new cells, repair of damaged tissue, and regeneration of tissue. In the A-lift, again, we looked at the content of microcurrent very briefly. You'll be familiar with microcurrent being used in non-surgical lifting treatments or microcurrent non-surgical lifting. And A-lift has three phases of the microcurrent, which is measured in millionths of an amp. It's a very well-studied current. The studies on microcurrent go back to 1969. And indeed, I'm going to be looking at some of the studies which showed that microcurrent can indeed increase ATP production by up to 500%. True microcurrent is completely subsensory. It will improve muscular health and cell health, but you should not feel a muscular contraction. That is something that is caused by a Faradic current, which now is perhaps fair to say is a little bit old-fashioned. But true microcurrent is subsensory and you don't feel it. That's the case also with nanocurrent, completely subsensory. The difference here is that nanocurrent is measured in billionths of an amp as opposed to the millionths of an amp for microcurrent. So much, much more intrinsic and able to pick up on the tiny, tiny biorhythms of the human body and tune in to those cells at a very intricate level. So both the wavebands of microcurrent and nanocurrent mimic the electrical frequencies of the individual patient or client. They both act upon the mitochondria within the cells, and that's whether it's an epidermal cell, a fibroblast cell, a muscle cell. or a white blood cell for immunology. All of these can be helped and supported in their function. This means that the mitochondria, the energy generators of the cells, are stimulated and respond by producing up to 500% more adenosine triphosphate, as we just said, and this will then carry the oxygen. This will then carry the energy formed from oxygen and glucose around the cell, enabling the cell to function and to renew by mitosis, literally recharging and re-energizing the cells. So both microcurrent and nanocurrent will achieve that. The clinical evidence on microcurrent is long established, going back, as I mentioned, to the 1960s and through to the 80s. The first of these studies was it was published in 1969 by a scientist called Walcott and his team. This proved that microcurrent of 200 to 800 milliamps applied to wounds, a variety of different wounds, gave the study group a higher rate of healing than the control group, who did not have the microcurrent applied but were offered more traditional wound treatments. So the results showed 250 to 300% faster healing rates with the microcurrent, and less scar tissue and a reduction of bacterial infection. So very positive results, which were further illustrated by another study in 1975 and 1976 by Galt and Gatend, which showed a halving of healing times. The subsequent study by Cheng et al. In 1982 then showed that the microcurrent between 10 and 500 microamps increased ATP production by 500% and protein synthesis, such as collagen and elastin, by 70%. So again, a very successful evidence to show the improvement in skin health and function by using current passing from the anode to a cathode over the membrane and into the mitochondria to stimulate ATP. So having said that, obviously microcurrent is already proven to address mitochondrial ATP and improve cellular function and renewal. So what is nanocurrent? How is that superior? Essentially, the nanocurrent is able to really further create a more youthful functioning within the skin cells. It actually helps the skin cells to behave more like they did when the client was younger, by, again, further recharging of the energy power plants, the mitochondria. It uses a selection of electrical waveforms, currents, and frequencies to stimulate the cellular metabolism, function, and renewal at different levels in the skin. And it is able to synchronize even more than the microcurrent in terms of the natural frequencies of each individual. And indeed, it actually adjusts itself so that each individual person, the machine is the current is actually adjusting so that it's tuning in to that individual's biorhythms. In order to understand how it does this, we need to look at the skin, the human body's natural resonance, its natural electrical frequency. I'm just going to skip onto this slide here now. This really will illustrate how microcurrent, nanocurrent actually supersedes the microcurrent's ability to tune into the cells. We've already mentioned that microcurrent is measured in microamps, in 1 millionth. A microamp is 1 millionth of an amp, whereas a nanocurrent, a nano amp, is 1 billionth of an amp. Looking at the human cell, the natural electrical frequency or the natural resonance of a human cell has been measured at an average of 40 nanoamps with a voltage of 0.007 volts. It's the nanoamp, though, that we need to focus on. So therefore, the frequency of a human cell is measured in nanoamps, and therefore by using nanocurrent, it is really evident, therefore, that we can really tune in to that intricate stimulation of the human cells to mimic that natural stimulation to the cells. So by using nanocurrent with A-lift, we can actually be far more intricate, far more targeted to the cells, and syncing that current with our client's natural cellular resonance. An additional consideration here is looking at the cell membrane, which we looked at the diagram. The cell membrane, as we talked about, was a semi-permeable structure. It allows certain substances into the cell and partly and out of in and out of the cell. What we know in terms of the more intricate structure of the cell membrane is that it has something called the sodium-potassium pump. And this is partly responsible for the electrolyte passage through the membrane. And you can see on the diagram here, you can see sodium on one side and potassium on another. K is potassium, Na is sodium. And this electrolyte passage is facilitated by the sodium pump. And in order to basically what happens with the sodium pump is it powers these elements through the cell, and ATP is needed for this process. So the ATP is powering the sodium pump, and this is also being affected by the A-lift current, the nanocurrent. So this vital function of the cell to have this sort of osmosis and diffusion and passage of substances is actually really reinforced by the nanocurrent. So we now know that ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is the body's natural body fluid, natural battery fluid, and charges the cells. We also know that using the nanocurrent, we can tune in to the natural electrical frequencies and biorhythms of the human body to stimulate this ATP production. This gives us adaptive regeneration because not only are we tuning into the skin cells and their individual frequencies, but the A-lift unit can also monitor and adjust its wavelengths. Every 16th of a second, the current will adjust to ensure maximum synergy with the rhythm of your client's skin, and so gain the maximum results, which is a pretty unique ability for that to take place, and means that our treatments are very tailored and bespoke, and will gain the maximum benefit. With this in mind, when we look at the key resonances of the human body, we have something called the A waveform, which is a signal coming from the brain. This A waveform is only evident in our youth, and it acts as a trigger to stimulate the growth of tissue, so natural regeneration as in those formative years. What we found is that the technology of the A-lift treatment will stimulate the A waveform, and this can therefore cause the skin cells to behave as they would in a younger person. So an additional benefit to the nanocurrent, and significant implications therefore to anti-aging treatment. In summary, therefore, nanocurrent and microcurrent will boost the ATP in the cells by 500%. It will re-energize all cellular metabolism and function, increases keratinocyte cell renewal by mitosis, and also increases protein synthesis, collagen, elastin, and hyaluronic acid. The key here being that nanocurrent will enable us to achieve this at a much more intricate level. This therefore gives us optimum cellular rejuvenation. The cells will be re-energized by the greater ATP. This will improve cell function. It will improve healthy cell renewal. It will prevent early apoptosis or cell death, and it will therefore effect intracellular anti-aging within the skin. Having said that, the clinical evidence behind this treatment is vital to understand, because this is what really backs up the claims behind this treatment. First of all, the essential thing is to prove that nanocurrent, which has been used so broadly medically, is indeed being emitted by the A-lift unit. I'm going to now show you a video which was conducted of a trial conducted by Ali Hussain, which was conducted on the A-lift on the 24th of July 2015, which will show the emission of both nanocurrent and microcurrent phases. The waveforms and current were monitored in real time, and this video is available if you wish to have it. The unit that was used to measure the nanocurrent was a Keithley picometer. This is a very sophisticated piece of equipment and was brought into Sonic Medical specifically for this purpose. I'm therefore going to now show you this video. I will just allow it to show you the nanocurrent and one of the microcurrent phases. If you wish to see the full test, then as I've said, you can get the video, but otherwise it's a rather lengthy video. So I'm just going to let you watch this now.
And the Diamond Systems here at Sonic Medical, my company. I'm doing this quick test to verify nanocurrent from the A-lift to whoever it may concern. Okay, a quick rundown of today's experiment. Equipment used. We have a standard A-lift. Very important that the software version be 4ST, as you can see there from the machine. We have a 50 megahertz allergen oscilloscope, which is connected in parallel with the anode and cathode of the outputs of the A-lift. So basically the plus and minus of the lead is connected in parallel to the plus and minus of the scope, or the anode and cathode. Alongside this, we have our Keithley 6485E picoammeter. Now, one of these specialist lab tools are required in order to measure nanocurrent, because your normal meter you buy for Maplins is not going to do the job. It's a very expensive piece of kit and it's designed for lab work. That is connected to the probe leads in series. As you can see here, we've had to break into the lead to put the ammeter in series with the circuit, because that's the only way it can measure the current, is when the meter is in series, not parallel. Okay, now what will happen, the circuit will flow the anode and cathode through the probes onto the skin, and the meter will measure the amount of current dosage being delivered to the skin. So this will measure real time the amount of nanoamps going to the skin. Now, the correct way to conduct this experiment is to use the probes with the cotton buds, use gel and water to conduct. So you cannot just put an amp meter straight to the outputs of the A-lift. It will not work. Okay, there are two programs in the A-lift which produce nanocurrent. there is, if I take you to the advanced phases 1 to 5, the two that produce nanocurrent is phase 3 cell regeneration 1 and phase 5 cell regeneration 2. These are the two programs that produce nanocurrent. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with phase 3, which is cell regeneration 1. Now when I press the program, you'll see the waveform on the oscilloscope. So here I'm press and run. There is the waveform being produced. That is the waveform that will carry the current to the skin. Now, if I press stop on the machine, you'll see the waveform will disappear. There, it's gone. So I'll press run again, the waveform comes back. Now what I'm going to do here on our test subject is first I'm going to apply a liberal amount of gel on the skin. Right, I'll just quickly get a tissue to wipe my hands. Okay, program is in run mode. So when I go in contact with the skin, we will hear the conduction. First I will dip the cotton buds in some water. Now if you watch very closely on the picoammeter, the measurement at the moment is about 5 nanoamps. And that's just measuring the atmosphere. So if you get a close-up of the meter, when I put it in conduction with the skin, you can watch the meter. There we go. We have 177 nanoamps. And when I let go, there's virtually nothing. So back in contact with the skin, there, 175, 176, that's nanoamps. That's billionths of. If I let go again, you'll see it goes to virtually nothing. Back in contact with the skin, there you go. 165, 166. Right, that is program 1. Now we will stop this program. For the next program, I have to adjust the time on the oscilloscope to 2 milliseconds, which is around about there. Next program is phase 5 cell regeneration 2. So if I push that and press run, you will see the waveform come up on the oscilloscope. I will just stop it again so you can see that the waveform disappears. I will start it again so you can see the waveform's back. Now we can see on our picoammeter there is about 0.10 of a nanoamp. Now when I go into circuit, there we have about 70 nanoamps. And if you see how I'm holding the probes, they're away from each other. And the minute I let go, the nanocurrent disappears. If I go back into conduction with the skin, there you have 65 nanoamps. And that concludes our nanocurrent test. We will now conduct test 2, which is microcurrent test, in order to see the other 3 programs produce the microcurrent. We shall start again, just like the first test. Machine, 4ST, software version. We will go to advanced. Now the 3 programs that produce microcurrent is phase 1, lymphatic drainage, phase 2, lifting type 1, and phase 4, lifting type 2. So we will start with phase 1, lymphatic drainage. Now when I press run on here, you will see the waveform. There's the waveform. We have set our picoammeter to microamps, as you can see from the display. It's set for microamps. We will once again dip the probes in water And as you can see, gel is already applied to the arm. So I'm now producing around about between 75 and 80 microamps here. And that's on lymphatic drainage. Right, we will now go to the next program.
Okay, as I mentioned, I'll leave that to continue. If you wish to see that in full, then you can ask the ladies at Nouveau Beauty to send that full video to you. Just to confirm the results, though, of that test, we have 3 phases of microcurrent. Phase 1 at 70 to 80 microamps, which gives us lymphatic drainage. Phase 2, which is the lifting type 1 current, helping to firm and lift the facial features. That's 160 microamps to 200 microamps. And then at phase 4, the lifting type 2, 150 microamps to 250 microamps. And the study does go on to show those currents being emitted. Where our specific point of interest for today is the cell regeneration phases at phase 3 and phase 5, which you have just seen on that video. Phase 1, cell regeneration 1 at 160 nanoamps to 180 nanoamps, and at phase 5, cell regeneration 2, 55 nanoamps to 75 nanoamps. And these are those very intricate frequencies which will tune into the skin cells. So, having looked at the evidence of the nanocurrent within the A-lift, we now turn to a published study by Dr. Lawrence Lang, who works within the Mount Sinai School of Medicine in California, and he published a study in 2013 using the A-lift machine. He used the A-lift on a number of cell cultures, which are using the made in Derby canine kidney cells, which are a scientific norm for, well, the gold standard for studying epithelial cells. So they use these cells to study epithelial tissue and how it functions. What was actually done in this study was that the cells, they had 2 sets of cells, one for the study and one as a control. One set of cells was exposed to an A-lift treatment, just one A-lift treatment at room temperature, and the other set of cells were not connected to the A-lift device. The cells were then incubated, and the metabolic activity and replication of the cells by mitosis was measured. The outcome was that cells that were not treated by A-lift showed a slight decrease over the time period in metabolic activity. Actually, they were beginning to tire and potentially apoptosis occurring. But the cells treated by A-lift showed increased metabolic activity and increased mitosis. So the stimulation of those cells clearly being shown. These study findings were then plotted onto this chart, and the red line shows the A-lift treated cells and how they maintained and increased their metabolic activity and renewal. Obviously, this is a very summarized version of the information, and certainly if you wish further information on this, it can be provided to you. Otherwise, around the world, there's been a large amount of medical research on the use of nanocurrent for different medical conditions. Just to give you some examples, it's been used in kidney dialysis research, It's been used for glaucoma, for repairing the cells and strengthening the optic nerve within the eyes, so enabling improvement of vision, colour vision, and also perception of shape. It's been used on looking at fibroblast longevity in order to strengthen connective tissues. It's also been used for tissue repair in sports injuries, and that's both muscular tissue and connective tissue. Also used for treating chronic pain. In terms of cancer research, significant progress has been made in the treatment of cancerous tumours, and a very exciting suggestion is that the A-lift is able to selectively destroy unhealthy cells but leave the healthy cells intact, because obviously the increased replication of the cancer cells would not be the aim. So it does destroy the unhealthy cells, but improves the health of the good cells. Worldwide A-lift studies that are ongoing are, again, with Dr. Lawrence Lang, studies being conducted on living cell cultures for cell behavior. Those are ongoing. In Japan, there is testing on the A-lift for atopic dermatitis with very good results, and also on psoriasis, as you can see, as again can be seen. Juntendo University in Tokyo again is looking at A-lift for cellular repair, and in Tokyo the effects on immunology and the link between lymphatic drainage and healthy pregnancies. Additionally, there is work looking at the relief of eyelid ptosis, which is an overhanging eyelid rather. Therapeutic effects on Alzheimer's disease, eczema and psoriasis again there, and also on diabetes, helping the blood flow to the extremities, so preventing potentially the need for amputations. And that one is being carried out in London. So a lot of exciting developments in terms of its medical indication, and in terms of its then uses with anti-aging. Obviously the implications are very exciting. When we look at the applications for cosmetic use, we have two ways of applying the A-lift. First of all, it can be applied using electrostimulated pads, as you see on the left-hand side. This is particularly good for the cellular regeneration, and the electrons will be traveling across the areas of the face to impart a general effect over the skin. Obviously, the cells in between those areas will be stimulated, sort of not needing you to use the probes. The probes, however, are ideal for the lymphatic drainage elements of the treatment, and also for the contour lifting elements of the treatment. So perhaps a more familiar mode of application for those of you who've been using microcurrent, but an additional usage with the pads, I think giving it a very medical and clinical sort of image. The clinical indications, therefore, are it can be used as A-lift can be used as an anti-aging treatment in its own right. We have a number of different protocols which would involve anything from just the principal clinical application to the incorporation of massage and spa rituals. We have general skin health improvement and maintenance. This can be given again as a treatment on its own right, or as a course. It can be used on skins that are dysfunctional, but also skins that are generally healthy, and it will therefore maintain that good health. And therefore, equally, that implicates the fact that it can be used on a younger skin as a preventative measure. When you are looking at doing clinical aesthetic procedures such as peels or laser or microneedling, where wounding of the skin is going to be involved, you can prepare the skin, making sure that it is functioning at its optimum levels prior to those clinical procedures, thereby giving your skin, this client's skin, the best chance of a successful outcome. And indeed, it can be used post-treatment and as an adjunctive treatment to clinical procedures. So after a peel or a laser, increasing healing, increasing tissue regeneration, supporting that skin in its recovery, and therefore in increasing the effects and reducing adverse side effects. The three modalities, therefore, we have sort of touched on these, but just to confirm these, we have three main modalities within the unit: cell regeneration, lymphatic drainage, and then lifting and firming. The cell regeneration works specifically on the keratinocyte cells and fibroblast cells to improve their function and regeneration, but equally it will improve the functioning of the immune cells, cells such as the Langerhans cells, the macrophages, T and B cells, all of which are involved in regeneration and renewal. Lymphatic drainage to remove fluids and toxins and helping skin contour, and then lifting and firming, helping to re-educate the muscle memories to the cell to lift and tone the skin. It's important to realise here that as we mentioned before, this current is not causing muscle contraction, but muscle cells are like any other cell, and they are powered by mitochondria. So ATP production within the muscle cell will equally assist in the muscle's health. When you look at the four protocols that we have in terms of spa treatments and the scientific treatments, we have four main procedures: miracle moments, angelic ritual, divine indulgence, and pure zenergize. And these involve varying degrees of either the pure clinical treatment or incorporating massage, not only of the face, neck and shoulders, but also of legs and feet, hands, and so on. You can make this treatment as spa orientated or as clinical as you wish. So for those of you who are more beauty and spa, this is something very much which will fit into your working portfolio. If you're more clinical in your offerings, or indeed the two things do go together, this can be used for optimizing the benefits of laser and IPL skin rejuvenation, chemical skin peeling, microneedling, mesotherapy, and really any treatment which is aimed at anti-aging or controlled wounding of the skin, causing the cells to regenerate the tissue. Additional benefits, just quickly therefore, the re-energizing and lifting of the facial muscles, which we touched on, and also looking at muscle cells not just as the contracting elements. We're not going to feel contraction. We are basically improving the health of those muscle fibers, which are elongated cells and which have mitochondria as any other cell. And this will give us the lifting and firming that you may well be used to with your existing microcurrent. And then also, of course, any stimulation, electrical or by manipulation, is going to increase the blood supply to the skin, which brings more oxygen, more nutrients, growth factors, etc. to the skin tissues, and that will always be of huge benefit to skin health, and the A-lift treatment is equally beneficial in that respect. Lymphatic drainage, often something that is neglected but is so vital. It's one of the things that becomes extremely sluggish in our older age, and we get particularly puffiness around the eyes, but also the tissues around the contours also can become puffy and give the skin a less refined and less streamlined appearance. Certainly for every client, just as we need blood circulation stimulation, lymphatic drainage is vital. The lymphatics do not work on any direct pumping action, as does the arterial blood. It depends upon the pressure within the vessels, and so lymphatic drainage can really help the health overall of the skin. A-lift, therefore, looking at this image, will help all of the areas that you see here indicated. Worry lines on the forehead, glabellar lines in between the eyebrows, crow's feet, and also the under eye wrinkles and under eye bags and dark circles. It can equally assist the nasolabial lines, marionette lines, which are really not indicated on here, but just show these are the marionette lines that come down here. This particular model is particularly young, so doesn't really have those. Necklines and wrinkles and lines also on the décolleté, which are a very aging sign and often neglected. It's going to help to refine the contour of the jawline, also help the lines around the mouth, the perioral lines, which are difficult to treat because it's such an actively mobile area. And equally, it will help the general complexion, the general cellular turnover, the general freshness and vitality visible at the skin surface. So just to conclude our webinar now, we'll look at some images before and after. Look at here, first of all, the relief of the redness. This is general erythema showing a sensitivity within the skin. The skin is much calmer, showing a better cellular function. If you look at the crow's feet area, you have a much lesser line. If you look at that line, it is actually almost totally gone there. This one here. Much smoother skin, and also a lesser crevice for the nasolabial. The marionette lines are equally less. Here you have the lower face showing an improvement in the perioral lines, and also generally this tissue here, which is really lost considerable amount of its integrity and support, is looking smoother and more refined. Around the eye area, a reduction in the under eye bags from the lymphatic drainage, and also a reduction here in these lines at the side, both lower and upper crow's feet reduced. This one is impressive too. This is just after one treatment, and here you have your eyelid ptosis, where the eyelid is very heavy, and here you get a lift. And it's important to probably bring in the issue of Botox here. Obviously, some people do have ptosis because of Botox. I don't think we can say that A-lift would be indicated to treat a ptosis. It does need to be addressed medically. But when you are working on a client who has Botox, you would automatically wait 2 weeks after a treatment. But do be aware that in increasing the metabolism of the cells, you will increase the degradation of the Botox. The cells will break it down more quickly. And so really, if the client really wants to have Botox, it is best that they have the A-lift course of treatment first. And then if indeed there is any more work to be done, because they may not actually need the Botox after the A-lift, then the Botox is done after the course of A-lift, and then they will be assured of the full longevity of that treatment. This is a full face treatment. This is after 10 treatments to this client. You have here particularly a much better complexion. Generally, the tone of the skin, the overall appearance of the skin is much more patchy and uneven to here. It's a much more fresh and even looking skin. This line here is considerably smoothed, and that again is a mobile line of expression, so a difficult one to really reduce. And also the lines around the mouth, these marionette lines in particular, are much improved, and the overall contour of the mouth is improved. Equally here, you have some jowls, and there they have been smoothed. So after 10 treatments, a very significant improvement. So that completes our webinar session. The A-Lift treatment is available through the Nouveau Beauty Group, and your representatives and the office themselves will provide you with any further information you require. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much for attending the webinar. If you have any questions, please do forward them to the Nouveau Beauty Group. The email possibly to use would be trish.carey@nouveaubeautygroup.com. Thank you very much.